Welcome to a new episode of On the Spot Review. I am going to talk about Carole and Tuesday. This is a show made by the same studio that brought us Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, and Space Dandy. I initially passed on this show because it just did not look like it was for me. As I was rewatching Cowboy Bebop, I decided I should give Carole and Tuesday a fair chance because it wasn't right for me to judge a show based on a clip that Netflix chose to show me. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the animation. Out of the studio's works, I wouldn't say Kill on Tuesday is one of their best. I wouldn't say it's bad animation either. I think the animation is solid. Uh, it's just that a lot of the characters look like they're made out of rubber, and it just didn't look that finished. Now, the other thing is that I don't know the way the show was made or how it was developed because I don't know if this show was intentionally made to be two seasons or if it was just one long continuous season and Netflix split it into two. I don't know because the first half of the first season, the animation was just kind of all right. It wasn't that great, but as the first season went on, the animation got better. And then season two, the animation was just solid throughout. So I don't know if it's like maybe the show was designed to be two seasons, and the budget was mostly used in the first season to fund the second half, and then they got a better budget for the second season. I don't know. The other thing it might be, and again, this is another thing I have no proof of, is that this also might be a show that was this studio's first time animating digitally. I know that I think a lot of Japanese studios are now transitioning into doing a lot of digital animation. Most recently, Studio Trigger stated that Brand New Animal was their last show that they did completely through traditional cell animation, and they were saying that now moving forward, all of their shows and projects are going to be done digitally. So I don't know if that's the case for Carol and Tuesday. Maybe that was like the show that the studio was doing digital animation for the first time or something because it does look like that in some ways. On the other hand, it could just easily be just a style. It could just be the show's animation style because it takes place in Mars. Maybe it's supposed to have this kind of glossy look to it. The only thing I do love about the animation is the theme song segment. The one that plays the song "Kiss Me" is one of my favorite intros. I just love the colors that's used, the way that the animation looks, the way that it flows. Everything about that intro is so good. Um, it's filmed like a music video, obviously. I mean, the show is about musicians. So it does seem fitting that it's that the intros are filmed as music videos, but I just love the art style is so different than the actual show's animation. I kind of wish that was the animation for the whole show, but it maybe it's a little bit costly to animate like that. I don't know, but I do like the animation for the intros. They're really nice and gorgeous. Kiss Me, as I said, is my favorite intro. I just love the colors and the crowd shot. Everything about it is really good. These intros really set the mood and tone for the show. And this is the other thing. If you look at these other shows that this company has put out, I think Carol and Tuesday, both visually and just the whole package, is a beast of its own. I think the animation does a very good job painting the atmosphere and the tone. It's comedic. It's kind of like a slice of life. It's comedic. It's also dramatic in some cases, and it does a very good job of highlighting a lot of these moments. There's a few episodes. I can't remember the episode number, but one of them where I think is when Angela has a stalker, and as she's like going home, like her mom is like, "Why don't you come back and live with me again?" She's like, "No, I like it here." As she's going back to her house, like saying, "I don't want to go back home because she feels smothered, etc." It the animation shows a picture of this guy, and then it just flashes as the mom, just like for a few seconds or so, like in a very like horror way. It kind of feels like a horror film in a sense, and I thought that was that was well done because it kind of makes it seem uneasy. and the animation does a very good job, kind of planting some seeds that pay off by the end of the show. So the animation does a very good job in service of everything in the show. It does a very good job. It's not too distracting in a lot of ways. It's just the first half of the first season. It just some of the characters that did not look like it was done in model almost. Like there's scenes that are well done in it, like the scene where you see Tuesday running away from home, the street performance where they're playing Lonely Girl for the first time. These are like good shots that are well made. It's just some like slight things are a little bit off, but it could also just be like random shots that are just in betweens or not pivotal scenes, which is fine as well. Uh so that's the animation. If it's solid, it's good. As I said, it gets better as the show goes on, and I do think this show is probably done digitally, maybe, but it gets its own groove by the end. So I do like that the animation does improve as it goes. You could tell that they probably put the most attention into the music aspect of the animation, the concert scenes, the stage performances, that kind of stuff. Obviously, they put a lot of the money in animation into that to make those scenes really pop. Especially that this show is not a thriller, like there's no action in it, so it does a good job kind of substituting that with concert scenes being that climax that you naturally see in any other show. So it's very creative in the medium and the story it's telling. The music. The music is obviously the bread and butter. Like this is probably the other aspect of where the money went to make good music. The soundtrack to Carole and Tuesday, be it the vocal tracks or the instrumentals, are all amazing. I've been listening to the soundtrack a lot. Like I've been trying to wean myself to listen to other music. I always find myself climbing back into listening to Carole and Tuesday because it has a good variety of like chill music that I love listening to as I do some work. Like as if I'm drawing or doing some art, I love playing that in the background because it's such soothing music to listen to. It ranges from that to like very soothing like vocal tracks that could be very dramatic or interesting that kind of play into the story. Um, to lightly touch into that with the music, if you listen to Carol and Tuesday's tracks like Laundry and Round, Army of Two, all these things have stuff to do with the story. Army of Two in particular is a very good example of this. It's played in the first episode of season 2, I believe. Yeah. And this is a scene where they're trying to lure out a music producer to record an album for them. The lyrics are literally about their journey to becoming famous or successful as musicians, etc. Like it's like the song is literally about that. And I do like that that their music kind of parallel or summarizes the stuff they've been through. It kind of is a nice um note on the characters where it doesn't feel like it's in service to like, oh, this is just music for the sake of it. This actually does a good job kind of showing where they've come as characters and showing how closely they've bonded as well. Like they start off just being casual friends and then they just get more like closely related as friends as the show goes on. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the story as well. So the music does a very good job kind of paralleling that, and even the music with Angela, which is supposed to be like manufactured establishment music that you'd hear like from Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, that kind of stuff, like stuff that's manufactured to sell and all that kind of stuff. Even that's those songs are good. Like this album really has a lot of good bangers that I would have a hard time picking a top 3. Like if you put a gun to my head and said, Theo, pick your 3 favorite songs, it would probably be After the Fire, Hold Me Down, and see, I could really go on, but I'm gonna have to go with Kiss Me. Kiss Me has such a nice like energy into it, but I could really list like more songs that I love a lot. But if I were to pick 3, those would be the 3 that I go with. It's just all of them are very well made and the performances are really good. The other thing is that this kind of is going to go into a little preference. Maybe some people are going to get angry at me. Everyone gets mad at me when I say this, but yes, I watch the show dubbed. Now, okay, when I listened to the show dubbed, I was curious. I did go back and put it in Japanese to hear if the songs were also in Japanese. The songs were in English. So I'd argue that the dub in Carol and Tuesday is the definitive way to watch the show. I'd argue that. Um However, I will say I don't I need to double check this as well, to be honest. I must have looked at it months ago when I finished watching the show to make sure and I forgot, but I don't know if the singers of Carol and Tuesday are the voice actresses of Carol and Tuesday, because they would be talking, then when they were singing, it sounded like different people. I mean, obviously for the sub, it's they changed the voice completely because they're going from Japanese to English. But again, I don't know uh the deal with that. That I'll have to look into a little bit more closely than me going off my pure memory that is questionable sometimes. But I would still argue that the dub is the way to go because it's not as jarring than, okay, they're speaking Japanese, then bam, they're singing in English. Like, it's not as jarring as it is just hearing the different voices, kind of. But even that aside, the music's still solid. It's a great, the soundtrack is just amazing. It's all up. You can listen to it on it's probably on Spotify and it's on Apple Music. So if it's on Apple Music, it's probably on Spotify. So the music's outstanding. I think that is the biggest backbone of the show. But let's get into the story. Now, instead of going into each episode painstakingly and all that kind of stuff, I'm just going to just talk about the story generally and all that kind of stuff. The stuff I liked and disliked. The story is really good. Carol and Tuesday, honestly, made me put into perspective. I think I learned something about myself. I am a sucker for this kind of story. Kiki's Delivery Service. I love that. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite Ghibli films ever. It's one of my favorites because it deals with Kiki wanting to be a witch, then like getting into a funk, like a kind of like a witch's block, and she's like, I don't know if I could do this, and she starts questioning her skills and her motivations and all this stuff, and that is so relatable. I love that the scene where she was with the artist and they're talking about that. It's all great movie. Love Kiki's Delivery Service, like absolute classic. Um, so I love that. And then I was watching Little Witch Academia, which deals with like you might not be good at something, you might be a failure at it, but you have your own energy and that you put into it that could also make it unique in its own way. Like use your shortcomings as a style, and it's such a nice story of Little Witch Academia. I think I did a video on that as well at some point, so check that out if I did. I need to. I'll have to look for it to see if I did, but great show. Check that one out as well. But I think I'm a sucker for any story that deals with uh the entertainment industry or art or something creative, because I love that Carol and Tuesday deals with these two characters trying to make it big in an industry that's not easy to make it. Like, and the industry is not taking them seriously. Like every time they try to get ahead in the show, it's like something that stops them. It's like, and it's not fair. Like the show doesn't do this thing where it's like they're like these chosen musicians that are just great talent that everyone loves. It's not even that. It's like they just don't get nothing goes for them. Like I was expecting in the episode where they're going to that concert for the first time, that they're gonna play. They're gonna be since they're like the substitute for another musician. They're gonna go on stage and everyone's gonna be like whatever, and then they're gonna cheer at the end and they're gonna love them. That never happens. It ends with them like getting booed off stage. People are throwing trash at them. They leave, and then this is the other trope I think I thought it was gonna go down, where it's gonna be like, they're either gonna like have a few episodes where they're not doing any music anymore, and they're just like, I don't want to do music anymore. Then something makes them go back into the music industry or whatever. It's not even that. They leave. Another musician just tells them like, keep at it or whatever, and then they're like, yeah, we're gonna come back here and we're gonna show them that we're actually good. Like they use that experience to like fuel them to do more, and that is a message I like the most about Carol and Tuesday, is that it's not about like you'll eventually get successful. It's that you're just gonna have to keep trying, and you may not be successful, but if you keep trying, you might be. And that's even by the end of the show, it doesn't even end with them being successful. It just ends with them being like, yeah, they've made it like that far, but I mean, they may not be widely accepted either. Like it's a good like balance of what they show where it's not one sided as much. So I love that this show deals with that, and that's like a thing I'm a sucker for, which this show really made it obvious for me. Like when I watched this show, I was like, yeah, I think if there's any other show or whatever that deals with this, I'm just gonna love it automatically, pretty much. Like that's where I'm at this point. Uh, I also like that this is the other thing that I think a lot of I don't like being like, oh well let me see. American media is pretty bad because of this. Unlike the Japanese media, it's not that. I don't want to make it sound like that, but a lot of like shows I've seen on TV on Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and even movies like Walk the Line, etc., kind of deals the same kind of shit where it just shows like a musician either rising to fame, then they get on drugs, and then they fall on hard times, and then they have a redemption arc, and then they either die at the end or they retire. And it's like, okay, like those are good stories, but it's like it's been done to death at this point. Like every like movie about some musician follows that same formula, and it's like enough. Carol and Susie does enough to at least make it different, where it shows both sides, and it shows it in a very compelling, creative way. The other trope that they use to their advantage is the rival. Now, every cartoon I've seen growing up always has an episode where, okay, the main character is gonna do a music competition and he's the underdog. This other guy, he's the favorite, and that's gonna be the main character's rival, but he's a bad guy and we should hate him, and that guy's gonna keep trying to cheat the whole way through, and see how fucked up it is. And it's like the same shit. They want you to hate the rival pretty much. They always paint the rival as like an asshole. Like you hate them. Like you want to see them fail all the time. And sure, that's like funny and all that. I mean, it's not completely bad. It's a tired trope that's like, okay, we get it. This takes the rival trope and makes it actually great, because it makes it a healthy competitive relationship between Angela and Carol and Tuesday, where it's not that they don't have any bad blood between them. They don't hate each other. It's that they both want to outshow the other. Like they both are trying to push each other to greatness, which I like. I like that that's the route that they went with it. It's much more interesting to see than like, yeah, Angel's gonna try to cheat because she has the establishment on her side, because that's how they develop her almost. Like the when you first see her, she's like an asshole to her manager. She's like a bitch to everyone. And then when she wants to be enter the music industry, it's like, I don't care, I'll be your marionette. Screw it, whatever. And then it's like, as it goes on, it's like you start to realize that there's more to it than just her wanting to be a musician, which is great. Like, it's a great rivalry to have, because both Angela and Carol and Tuesday's stories parallel each other. Like, they both go in, like, opposite development paths. It's kind of like how the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra compare those two shows, where Aang and Korra went on completely opposite paths development wise. You're watching the reverse of the other show, etc. And that's what this is. Like Angela, you first want to say what a bitch. You don't really want to like her, but as you start to understand her more, it's like, well, she just wants to be in the music industry because she just wants to uh expand her talent. She wants to kind of see, can she make it big in another venue, because she's been big as a star, as a model. Can she make it in music as well? And this is something that she wanted to prove to herself, which is why she really cared about the rivalry she had with Carole and Tuesday, and Carole and Tuesday cared about the rivalry with Angela, because it also allowed them to have a goal to aspire to. So both these characters played off each other so well that it's like it adds to the story where it doesn't feel traditional and played out. It feels interesting and dynamic where it feels whole. The show, I feel like if you take out either Angela from the show or just the story between the two characters, just remove it, you would lose half the show, half the heart of it. And that's what Carole and Tuesday have in spades. I think there's a lot of heart and genuine commentary that this show goes out of its way to have. Um the only thing that was kind of odd to me was with Angela's story, she goes to an AI lab that is going to manufacture songs for her to sing. And throughout this time, the first few episodes of it, you really feel like something like sinister is coming up. Like they have her strapped into this chair. Like she's strapped in and it's like they're trying to get her to hit a certain note and she's like I can't hit the notes. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he pushes the button, all these like drills and lasers just show up. And I'm just like, is this going to be like by the end of the show she's going to become like half robot or something? Is she going to become a cyborg? Because they just looked very like horrific almost. Like it was to the point where those scenes started to feel uncomfortable sometimes. I was like, I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna like where this is going. But it never went there. It was just kind of there, and then it never came back, which I thought was really weird. But I guess it also, if you look at the twist by the end of the show in general, I guess it was to foreshadow what Angela is. They kind of hint at what Angel is throughout the whole show, very subtly. Like it. I have to give it credit. Like a lot of shows try to do this subtle hinting very loudly. Like they just put a lot of obvious clues that this is the twist that's gonna happen, but we're not gonna tell you yet. These twists that they did for her, I think the only one that was kind of on the nose was her mom. Her mom's identity was being that I think this person was a trans character. Uh, he was one that she was once a man that transitioned into a woman, uh, which is interesting. Like it kind of heavily hints that, and they, in obvious ways. But that's the only thing. Like they didn't really do a lot of like heavy hinting that was ham-fisted about Angela and like what she is. Like you wouldn't know until the very end. So it does a good job kind of getting into that and hinting at that along the way. Um, So I like that, but I just want to highlight Carol and Tuesday's story at this point as well, where they're just trying to make it big. I love the dynamic as well with Carol and Tuesday, where this also bordered on a lot of tropey bullshit. And this is the thing that I love it about Carol and Tuesday is that it doesn't come. It's a degree predictable of a story, but it's not like painfully predictable where it's like, and this is gonna happen, and that's gonna happen. Like it does some subversion of expectations that doesn't feel annoying. Like I know, like now the idea of subverting expectations is played out, and it's like enough. We get it. You're not gonna go the way we think you're going. Like we get it. Do something different at this point, but it doesn't feel like that for this because it doesn't do it as often and it does it in areas that add something to it. One being uh Tuesday gets a package from a crazy fan that's disgruntled with her that burns her hand so she can't play the guitar anymore because this person was so mad. The whole like I was saying, I was like, yeah, I know who did it. It's this other character that we've seen before. It's that person. Like, and it tries to play the subversion game where it's like maybe it's Angela's mom, and it's like no, it's not her, and it's not this other guy. It has to be this other person. But they play that subversion, this to heighten Angela's character development. Like it served a purpose because Angela confronts her mom about it. Like, did it, did you really do that? Like she was like accusing her mom of sending her the package so that she wouldn't play the guitar. The mom's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I booked you for this commercial. Like I didn't, I'll cancel it again or whatever." And she's like, "Oh, okay." Like, uh, she found out that like she didn't do the she didn't send her the package pretty much, and that led to a development where Angela starts to have more trust with her mom, because at that point, like, she didn't really love her mom as much. Like, there is something that's kind of like strained between the two, and when you see that scene, it's like, okay, so Angela's slowly forming a trust with her again. Like, you're starting to see that. So it does that kind of subversion where it actually adds to the story and it doesn't seem forced or like we have to do it because you gotta subvert the expectation. It did it in a way that's like it's gonna serve a character pretty much. Like, it didn't feel like a wasted opportunity. They even resolved that package storyline in like the same episode or the second episode after it. Like, it was resolved pretty quickly where it didn't feel like it was going on and it would drive me up the wall. So that's great. I love when things don't drag on like that. But I love Carol and Tuesday's story where this is another thing that I was thinking that was going to be tropey was that Tuesday is a character from a rich family. She came from the one percenters on Mars, and she teams up with Carol, who is like a refugee. She's an orphan. She was abandoned from her parents. All this stuff, right? And there's a subplot that deals with the Mars government wanting to deport all these Earthlings. They want to send all these people back to Earth, pretty much. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, there's gonna be a part where Tuesday's mom is gonna deport Carol. That's gonna be a storyline. That's gonna be a thing. And I kind of thought I thought that more so after the first season, where it ends with Tuesday's mom, I guess kidnapping her, capturing her, whatever, and forcing her to stay home, like locked her in a room so she wouldn't play music ever again, whatever. And I was like, okay, this was a big plot point for the first season. So for the second season, they're gonna have it's gonna happen to Carol this time around. Like, she's gonna be like deported, and they're gonna have to like figure it out or whatever. But that's not the case either. Like, that doesn't really happen. So that's great that it doesn't, and they never pit the two against each other, which is another thing I love. Like, a lot of people have complained about all these shows that are ham-fisted with their political commentary and all this kind of stuff, and I'm gonna be honest, I think there is some stuff in Carol and Tuesday that was pretty influenced by current events, dude. Uh, because it has this very strong anti-immigration commentary on it, where it's like, yeah, immigrate, people should be allowed to immigrate and no walls, whatever. Like, it has a big like theme about that, but it doesn't get in the way of the heart of the story, and it doesn't feel like it's being ham-fisted to you and beaten over your head. It's like it elevates like the drive to create more music actually, which is good. It's great. Love it. Uh but I sat there, I was like, it's very easy. It's very easy for any show to be like, yeah, we're gonna have these two characters that one's rich, one's poor, and they're gonna butt heads about it at some point. Because I've seen so many shows that have that kind of duo, and then it's like the rich guy is like, oh yeah, they see something offhanded that they think it's like okay, and then the person's like, that's fucked up. You need to wake up, bitch. I thought we were friends. Bye. And then that person leaves because they're upset, and then the rich person would be like, wow, this person's right. I've learned my lesson. And it's like, we've seen this trope so many times that it's like, okay. But instead of that, Carol and Susie all instantly get each other's situation. Like, Carol understands that Tuesday came from a rich family and she wasn't happy there. Like, she did not like being in that family, and that family does not represent her. Like, Carol understands that from Tuesday, and Tuesday understands that Carol came from like the streets and all this stuff. So like, it's more important for her to care about what's going to happen with all these Earthlings that might be deported and all this kind of stuff, and they both understand these plights very well, and it represents that in the music that they make, and it deepens their friendship. Like, instead of it being like a thing that creates conflict and climax and all this shit, it's actually used to make them better friends. That doesn't feel like a a propaganda piece or whatever. Like, it does a good job kind of balancing that and making these characters stronger on their own. And this is what Carole and Tuesday has done many times. I've said this so many times that it has so much heart in the characters. But even the rivalry between Angela and Carole and Tuesday is very clever. Carole and Tuesday's dynamic between the two are very well. The only thing I will criticize it with Carole and Tuesday is that I kind of wish that this is the kind of show where I could definitely see why people would ship. We're gonna talk about shipping, guys. Why they'd ship Carole and Tuesday as as a romantic relationship, because a lot of the things that they do, like, it starts off as friendship. I could definitely see that, but it just feels like by the end they get so close to, they know each other so well that I kind of feel there's more to it than just friends. I don't know if it's hinted at, but I just kind of wish they capitalized it on a little bit more. Like, I'm not asking for, like, oh, they need to, make out and, like, get married or anything like that. Like, I'm not necessarily asking for that. I mean, if it fits the story, sure, but uh they could have like went all the way with it, because there's an episode where Tuesday gets an romantic feelings for a reporter, which this part seemed kind of out of nowhere. Like, there was no reason, in my opinion, for that relationship to even develop. I thought that came out of nowhere, just randomly. It was like, because I was watching this with my friend, who didn't watch the show with me at all. Like, this was the first episode he watched, uh, and we were both kind of cracking up that that Tuesday was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna hang out with this reporter. I'm gonna buy him flowers or whatever, and it's gonna be romantic." And then she finds out that he's with a girlfriend, and then she's like, "Oh," and then she's heartbroken. Like, I guess the idea, the point is that she's like 17, so maybe like this is their first time in love or something, and it's not well thought out. It's just there was no inkling of that at all. Like, there was nothing. There was no tension. There was not, like, there wasn't a point in Tuesday's interactions with the reporter that sounded like she had like secret feelings for him or something. It just seemed so out of nowhere, and it didn't go anywhere either. Like, there was nothing. It never came back in the story by the end. It never came back into play. Nothing came of it. There was no point for it. Like, and it happened all in like the credit sequence of that episode. So I kind of don't get what was the point. Like, it served no point and it came out of nowhere. So that's my only complaint. It just seemed that they had a lot of time to fill for this one episode, and they're like, we're just gonna throw this in just to fill the time, because it made no sense to me why that happened. Uh, I mean, yeah, she's 17, but like, I mean, come on, come on. Uh, I mean, the whole thing with Carole and that boy from the orphanage, that had more to it. Like, that at least had like a backstory to it. Well, Tuesday just had no developments. Like, bam, she had these feelings, and then she got sad about it, and it's like, oh, okay. Uh, so yeah, like, the story of Carole and Tuesday is overall solid. It's a really good story. I do think that my only complaint is that if the slight predictability is a turnoff, then maybe this is a turnoff for some people, but it does enough for me to keep me hooked. Like, even if it did have a predictable plot, I think the characters hold that show together. The characters and the music, because the characters are all likable. Like, I do like the manager they get. He had an interesting story as well, where he's like this washed up has been of a manager that happened to discover Carole and Tuesday, and then gets the drive to manage them, to become their agent, which is interesting because it shows that like, they also show backstory for him, where he had his one experience with a client and that went completely bad. Like, she got picked up by a bigger company, and then he's like, okay, if you want to go with this company, be my guest. It is what it is. And uh she was end up being used by this company and just spit up and thrown out by the industry. And that affected him as a manager because he's like, I should have protected her from that kind of company, and I wasn't able to be there for her, and they used her and all this stuff. And yet when he saw Carol and Tuesday, he got that drive and motivation. So I think this show has a clever theme of redemption and second chances for each character, and it even resembles that in Angela's story, which is a very good story. Like, I think Angela's story is actually surprisingly interesting because it follows the same kind of trope I kind of complained about earlier in this video. She starts at the top because this big industry is pushing her ahead. Uh, she gets big, but then she starts to go on like a drug rampage because she finds out that she's not really her mother's daughter. Like, she finds out that she's not even who she thinks she is. So that sent her down a path of drugs. Her mom dies, so like that was too much for her and all this stuff. Uh but it ends on an optimistic note for her where it's like, you know, you'll always have people who care about you. You know, you don't put a lot of faith in all of these other people that might not have your best interest in mind, because everyone just wants to make money, and you're there for your own reason and all this kind of stuff. So it does a good job kind of getting her out of that funk as well, where it's a much more interesting reason why she, you know, got spun out pretty much. And it doesn't do the bullshit where it's like, oh, now she's doing shitty gigs. Look at this gig. It's shitty. It's like she had a good gig when she was at her lowest, and then she was just refusing jobs after that because she OD'd. I lied, actually. She passed out on stage, and then she was in the hospital for the rest until the end of the show. Um, so Angela's story is pretty solid in the sense that it doesn't feel like it's telling like a story about, oh, look how corrupted the industry is. It's more of like it's more of showing how vicious the music industry can be, because you could either go into it and come out unscathed and being a successful musician and doing what you love, or you could just be spun out and just abused by the industry. And it does it in a very genuine way where it doesn't feel forced or ham-fisted. It feels honest. When you see these characters go through what they went through. When you see Angela's going through the paces of being in the music industry and where she went and where she ended, it felt honest. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, she has to be here in this particular part of the story. Oh, look at this, look at that. It's more like she got there through these means, and look how the music industry really cares about this. Uh, and it also shows just kind of how rough Angela had it, because to a degree her mom was living vicariously through her daughter. And that could have also been a story that has been tropey as well, but it's also used to show a side of the mom where, yes, she might be living vicariously through her daughter because she doesn't want Angela to suffer the same fate she did, but it's also on at the same time her just trying to do what's best for her daughter. Like, in a way, it's protecting her, but at the same time it's like, you know, also hurting her at the same time, because you're also making her feel smothered and all this kind of stuff. I think Carol and Susie does a good job towing the line of respecting the viewer and knowing what it's trying to tell them, and really, and like, not being ham-fisted. Like, the government and political themes that this show has doesn't feel ham-fisted at all, I'd argue, because it doesn't feel forced. It feels natural that Tuesday's mother would want to have these agendas in her campaign that are not right and are bad. Like, it makes it a point where it's like, these are bad policies that she's adopting because she just wants to win the election. And I didn't pick up on it when I first watched the show, but as I was like thinking about it, because I initially had no opinion on the government side story because I didn't think it was that interesting. But as I was thinking about this show, I started to realize that the government plot is actually much more interesting in a comparison to the main character's story, because there's competition that Carol and Tuesday went through, and they didn't do underhanded policies. They like Carol and Tuesday did not have to do bullshit songs to make it big. Like they did songs they wanted to do, and they stuck to what they did. Like they never had to do the meme of selling out, where they have to do like commercials and sing about shoes or whatever. Like Carol and Tuesday represents their story and their journey represents uh a passion for an industry, like a art form, in an industry that is monetized. Like they're not in it to be like super rich. Like yeah, they want to be successful. They want to make money doing what they love doing, but they are in it because they love what they're doing and they have a passion and a motivation to sing what they want to sing. The stuff they sing are personal to them and to their characters. So when they're in this competition with Angela to be the best, it's not they never like go back on their own morals or their own art to make it to get ahead. It's like we're just gonna have to think what we want to sing about and how can we make it better. Like how can we push it further in a very creative way. And even as much as Angela is a product of a manufactured AI company in Carol and Tuesday, there's also a drive there that is also honest and genuine, where it's not just I just want to make money. It's just I want to see if I can make it in the music industry. Uh, and you find out with Angela's story as it goes on that she started to kind of push back and regret that she was doing songs based off of an AI. Like, uh, her producer had made this device that was going to train her to sing the best song ever, and once he gave that to her, she was like, "I don't want to. I don't want to do this. I want to sing a song I want to make. I don't want to sing a song this thing made." Like she started to understand that she'll never make a great song because it's not coming from the heart. It's coming from a machine. And this was something that she dealt with and battled with as she was going on. I so that's really what I love about Carol and Tuesday. So to tie this back into the government subplot, it just shows how soulless and corrupt the government political spectrum of things, because you see this heart and passion in art and creative fields. Like all these people have something to say. Like if they have a policy, if they have like some political alignment that they don't like the other thing, they'll do something to show it. Like they'll put it into something that they think is it's important. If they think that, for example, like if I made a movie and I want to show the importance of socialized medicine, let's say, then I'd make a story that shows the faults of the current healthcare system, and then showing how socialized medicine might be great or whatever, like that kind of stuff. And it's like these ethics and this beliefs that you throw in that seem like honest and genuine, and a lot of people like that kind of stuff and stuff in a lot of movies and music and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes like people love genuine some genuine stuff like that, and all this passion they put into it. But you'd think that the field that actually affects change and affects people's lives would have that kind of mentality where I'm gonna run and have this passion and heart to run on my beliefs. But you start to find out that's never the case, because there's always a manager that tells them you need to say this because this demographic really likes this. So you need to say this and do that and all this kind of stuff. And then it becomes this game of how can I win? What should I say to win? And it really just shows how soulless and careless the government system, the political system is compared to the music side of the story in Carole and Tuesday, where it's the same kind of competition that each musician has their own beliefs and their own thing, but they're being honest with what they're doing and what they're making. These politicians in Carole and Tuesday that are making these promises don't believe what they promise. A lot of times, a lot of the characters call out, like Tuesday's mother gets called out a lot on these beliefs being shitty and not honest, because these are not policies she ran on before, and it's like you're just running on these policies because you'll know you'll win with these policies, but these aren't good policies to run on. you should run on something you honestly believe in. And you really see how worn down it is, and it plays a lot in Tuesday's character as well, where Tuesday felt like this was not a good environment for her to be in because she liked writing music, she liked making music, and the environment she was in just wasn't healthy to be in to make music or to be herself, so she ran away. So honestly, overall, Carol and Tuesday's story is a very solid story. And I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, well, this show doesn't have any stakes. There's no stakes. It's like whatever. Yeah, of course, this show isn't about world-ending things. It's not like Gurren Lagann, where it's like, oh, this thing's gonna wipe out humanity or anything. But there are stakes in the sense of Carol and Tuesday was struggling to make it to where they were by the end of the show. Like no one was taking them seriously. Like they went to Etrigan, which was a big DJ in the show, and he was like, "Who are these two girls? They're nobodies. Who cares? You know, their music is probably crap. Who cares?" And he dismissed them, and they're like, "Fuck this," and they leave. Like it's a great episode. I love the episode where Tuesday just takes the song, lights it on fire, and just like makes it so that the indoor fire extinguisher system goes on. And I was like, that's great, perfect, love it. And sure, like every music story has that scene where a guy says your song sucks, and then they rebel and they're like fuck you and whatever. But it was just great. It was great that Tuesday did it. Okay, obviously. Uh, I just love that it just does all like that. These stakes are personal. Like these are personal stakes for these characters. Like they were trying to make it big. Like that's if they didn't make it, like if they did not get a record label or a record signing after the American Idol parody, that would have been it for them because they're not making it. Like the music video bombed. No one cares about them. They couldn't win first place because they were disqualified for being late. And then like so they had stakes involved. Like there were stakes. And then I guess you could argue that the ending didn't really go anywhere because um they were planning a big concert that they were gonna like hack into everyone's TVs and play it, and play so everyone could be moved by the music and all this kind of stuff. But what made the main character decide to change the her platform and all this stuff wasn't the concert. It was like her brother, not her brother, oh my god, Tuesday's brother, that told her like, look, you're fucking up, you're this guy's bad news for you or whatever. And then she came to her own conclusion like, yeah, this guy sucks, I am gonna change my mind and all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't even the concert or the music that made the impact. But the scene at the end with that big concert was nice because it paid off all the stuff that was built up. Like all these characters that you've seen along the way in Carol and Tuesday's journey had a role in that concert. So it was a nice callback to everything that was accumulating to the point where every episode always talks about that concert and you don't know what it means. Like the narrator just says there was a big event that changed the world, and there was an episode that said it might have changed the world, might not. Did anyone even remember? Who knows? Like it said something like that, where it's like, even though the show is like building up this concert, it might not even have done the desired effect. Like it's for the viewer. Like when you're watching Kill and Tuesday, it's up to you to decide, was that concert a big deal or was it nothing? Like it leaves that little nugget of thing for you to chew on in your head, to the point where it even ends where it says Carol and Tuesday will continue in your dreams or something like that. And I thought that was a very nice way to end a show where it's like, yeah, we're the story's finished. I mean, it could technically continue because there was no finite ending. There was no big baddie that was defeated. I mean, it could always theoretically continue, but it ends with just saying it's going to continue in your dreams, like saying like it's not going to come back. We did a big concert. You can decide, was it big enough to change the world or not? Like, the show never takes a stand to tell you what to think about that. And I love that the show respects the viewer enough to do that. The other thing I like about Carole and Tuesday is that the animation is not the animation, the characters is what I meant to say are all well diverse. They have a character that's binary. They have a character that is trans. They have all these characters that are like unique, and the main characters are not the traditional like because a lot of shows they always want to make like the main character hot or like cute or whatever, and to a degree, sure you could argue that Carol and Tuesday are cute characters, but uh, I mean, I guess it's a personal preference for me. I don't like freckles at all. Like I don't like them. I ain't a freckle nut. And Tuesday having freckles and me and the still liking the overall character design says a lot about the character design. The character designs are so well done that uh it had things I didn't like in character designs that I was okay with. Um so there's that. There's that. It just doesn't feel like that these character designs are tropey bullshit, you know? Like oh, this guy's a rocker, so we're gonna give him like the leather wristbands with spikes on it. He's gonna have a mohawk, and he's gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm a rocker." It's like, no, these the fashion in this show feels real. Like it feels, that this would be fashion today, pretty much. Like it doesn't feel like it's out of place or goofy or whatever. So I do feel that to a degree, Carol and Tuesday will age just fine. If I were to rate Carole and Tuesday, I would honestly give it an 8 out of 10. I think what holds it back is some of the pacing kind of felt weird in some cases. Like I'm fine with slow paced shows that can feel long, but there were some things that were drawn out, and some degree of the predictability was just not great. Um, Knowing who sent the package, like sure that was used to create a good developed character moment for Angela and her mom and all this stuff, but I just didn't really care for like like they played it way too obvious. Like they should have just had the packages in the room just sitting there uh, and leave it at that instead of showing us like the person who did it leaving the room and then be like, who did it? Like it just wasn't fun to know to being ahead of the game. And it's the same criticism I had for so many shows where it's like if the viewer's ahead of the twist, then you really have to hope the twist is good. Like and it's or whatever. Because if it's not as good, it's gonna really really suck. One an example is being Legend of Korra Book 2. The second you know Unalaq is the bad guy, and then they're like, surprise, he's the bad guy. It's like, why is this a surprise? Of course he's the bad guy. Like, what the fuck? Like, and they made it sound as if it was a big deal, but it wasn't. Um, the music is great, so like that's what holds it up. The animation is I still feel like as good as the animation gets by the end, I still think the animation could have been better, which is another reason why I docked it to 8 out of 10. Like it's just it was so close, but it just I don't like characters looking like rubber. But it's a great show. It's on Netflix. I do recommend it if you're interested in like the stuff that Watanabe has worked on. Because I will say I was under the misconception that this was a Watanabe directed show. He did not direct this show at all. He was a supervisor to it. I think he was either supervising director or creative director. Like he had some kind of role that wasn't director. I can't remember the name of the actual director, but he did not direct this show, but he did work on it to some degree. It's still good. It's still a worthy show. Like it still has the same kind of logo style that you've seen from Watanabe. So that's why I think a lot of people kind of thought it was a show from him. But it's still a solid show all in all. Like the story is interesting. It has a very heart. It's full of heart and passion. So I think it's worth it. This video was supposed to be like 30-40 minutes and I ended up talking for an hour. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. And it wasn't even well directed by the end, but I tried my best, damn it. Thank you for watching this review. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.